Hi again then guys, and welcome to episode 52, the second bonus episode in the SuperSports series, and this particular episode is about a vehicle which you see a fair amount in top speed racing, not so much around the track, and it's a vehicle which, kind of like the Nissan GTR Black Mask, is kind of a novelty car, kind of like the pace cars as well. They're not really needed, they're just fun. And sometimes that's a great thing to have, because a car doesn't necessarily need to be the best possible version, it could just be a different version, such as with the multiple different GTRs, the Proto, the Concept, the Mask, etc. Now this particular vehicle is in effect a Black Mask version of the Corvette. It's the test mule version. And basically what that means is it's the state that the vehicle goes through between concept and production, where the company covers the car in an assortment of, in effect, tarp, to make the car masked from the public, and especially from automotive paparazzi, so that they can't see what the finished product is going to look like just yet. This is the stage where they need to take the car out on the road to see what it drives like, how it performs, etc., but at the same time don't want to give away what it's going to actually look like. This is that for the Corvette, the C7 Corvette. Now, of course, we had this car on Gran Turismo before the other two C7 Corvettes, because this was released on Gran Turismo 5. This particular model is categorically not as good as the other two Corvettes. The normal C7 is a brilliant performance car. For 51 grand, the deal that you get is remarkably good on that vehicle. Then you also have the Gran Turismo Concept version, which is a little bit more expensive, but some people do seem to quite like it, which is understandable. It's an alternative version. But this car, this is much more of a novelty. Technically speaking, the GT Concept is also a novelty car, but that one is essentially just as good as the normal model, it's just a bit more expensive. This car is not as good. Now that being said, although it's not as good, the difference between them is not very big. The weight, for instance, is exactly the same at 1235 kilos fully tuned. The engine, well, we're not told what it is, but it's essentially the same engine, but with slightly less power and slightly less torque. Now, speaking of having less power and torque, it has 7 horsepower less than the normal C7s at 913 horsepower, which still isn't exactly lacking, and it puts out 849 foot-pounds of torque, which again is a little bit less, 3 foot-pounds of torque less. So, although it's worse, technically, it's still not anywhere near being a bad car. The PP is also fractionally lower due to the reduced power and torque, but even then it's only 1 PP lower than the other vehicles at 634, whereas they sit at 635. I would say the only real issue that this car has potentially is the price. It costs double what the normal C7 does at 100 grand. Now that's still not a bad price at all. It's a phenomenal performance car, in fact, for the money, but the fact is, you can get the normal one, which is technically a better car, for significantly less. You can almost get 2 of them, in fact, for the price of this one. So what you're really buying is not the best of the 3, it's just the one for people who want something a bit different. And different, this car definitely is. Visually, especially inside and out, and this car does have a fully detailed interior, it is completely cloaked in, of course, test mule form, and it does look really cool. It has a cloth quality to it, obviously, that a metal, aka normal car, wouldn't have. Now obviously underneath it does have the bodywork, but from the top it does give you a completely different texture to a normal car which you'd see on the game. Obviously you cannot repaint the car, that goes without saying really, and you can't upgrade it visually, but for those who want something different to the C7, be it in GT form or normal form, this does deliver that. It's a novelty car, very much so. Now, as far as straight line performance, which is what most people tend to use this for, it's still an extremely rapid vehicle. The top speed, for instance, is still over 290, and although that's not quite as quick as the GT edition or the normal C7, it's still more than quick enough for most, say, Special Stage Route X racing or Route 7 racing. Certainly high enough for tracks like the Le Mans or Monza. The only way which it really doesn't perform as well is handling. And it's not a bad handling car, it's just justified in being not as good, because it's not finished. This is the test car, so of course it's not going to be good. And contrary to what you might think, I actually like that. That's appropriate. It shouldn't be as good as the finished product. Certainly shouldn't be as good as the GT Concept, which is even newer again. So the fact that the handling doesn't feel quite as good is actually cool, because that adds a layer of authenticity to the way the car should feel, because at the end of the day, it's not the finished product. So overall, I wouldn't recommend this as your first choice of C7. I would recommend the normal C7, but if you're looking for something different, this car certainly doesn't disappoint. It's got a huge amount of performance for the price and for the spec, and it's just an interesting alternative. Again, like the pace cars. But that's it overall for this particular pick. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.